Hello there, I'm Lady Loy, and I did a video earlier and for some reason it didn't record, and well, it recorded but there was no sound, so I've had to redo it. And this video is for women who feel pressured to get involved when men come forward quickly. And, they use the excuse, well, you're not getting any younger, don't you know what you want? What is it you're looking for? Some women, they're just not ready. Some people don't want to commit. And even those in a relationship, they want to take their time. So this script that I've written is for those of you who it applies to. There's a pattern many women recognise, but rarely talk about without judgment: the pull towards men who commit quickly, who arrive with intensity, certainty and emotional momentum. Men who seem to know early, men who don't hesitate, men who say the right things fast, feel deeply fast and want to build something now. On the surface, this can look like clarity. After all, so many women have spent years navigating ambiguity, mixed signals, emotional unavailability, long stretches of waiting to be chosen. So when someone steps forward decisively, it can feel like relief, like finally exhaling, like being met rather than pursued. And yet, experience often teaches something more complicated, because many women also know something only in hindsight: that speed can mask things. Not always, but often enough to make the pattern worth pausing over. What looks like confidence can sometimes be urgency. What looks like certainty can sometimes be fear. What looks like devotion can sometimes be emotional dependence, arriving fully formed. The difficulty is this: in the early stages, healthy enthusiasm and unhealthy urgency can look almost identical. Both are attentive, both expressive, both feel affirming, and no one wants to dampen something that feels good by overthinking it. So the question isn't, is quick involvement bad? The real question is, how do we proceed wisely without losing warmth, openness and humanity that make connection possible in the first place? The first thing to say, and this matters, is that attraction to intensity is not a flaw. It's human. Our nervous systems respond to attention, attunement and emotional presence. Certainty feels safe in a world where uncertainty has often been costly. Wanting to be chosen clearly and quickly makes sense. The work then isn't about shutting that attraction down, it's about learning how to stay present inside it, rather than being carried along by it. One helpful shift is to stop evaluating people based on how strongly they come on, and instead begin observing how they respond when the pace is gently regulated. Not stopped, not interrogated, just slowed to a human speed. Healthy confidence can tolerate modulation. It doesn't panic when things don't escalate immediately. It doesn't collapse when momentum pauses. It doesn't require constant reassurance to remain intact. So one of the kindest, simplest things a woman can do early on is introduce small amounts of normal reality. A busy week, a boundary about time, a preference that isn't mirrored, and not yet instead of yes. This isn't a test, it's a temperature check. Does the interest remain steady or does it tighten? Does the connection feel the same or does it subtly depress, or does subtle pressure appear? Does the man remain himself, or does he become anxious, persuasive or withdrawn? You don't need to analyse his childhood, diagnose attachment styles or decode every message. You just need to notice whether slowing down changes the emotional atmosphere. In other words, changes the dynamics. Because here's the quiet truth: authentic confidence stays intact when it isn't constantly fed. Performative certainty needs momentum to stay convincing. Another useful anchor is paying attention not to what is said, but to what becomes required. In healthy early connection, nothing is required of you yet. You're not responsible for stabilizing someone's mood. You're not managing their sense of security. You're not calibrating your emotional expression to keep things okay. When something subtle shifts, when you start editing your tone, softening your face, managing your energy, or arriving pre-adjusted, that's information, not accusation. Oh my. Not proof of harm, just information. It often shows up quietly, a sense that your neutral mood feels risky, that your tiredness might be misread, that your independence needs to be explained. That being fully yourself could disrupt the emotional equilibrium. Healthy connection makes room for variance. Unhealthy urgency needs reassurance that nothing is wobbling. That is why so many women describe feeling pressure without threat. Nothing is overtly wrong, no one is doing anything obviously bad, and yet something begins to feel slightly constraining. That's usually the moment to pause, not to retreat, but to recenter. One grounding practice is to keep your internal life intact. Stay connected to friends, keep routines, maintain interests that don't involve the relationship, not as a defense, but as a way of staying embodied in your own life. If a connection is healthy, this independence strengthens attraction. If it isn't, it often exposes imbalance. Another helpful orientation is to remember that intensity is not intimacy. Intimacy grows through observation, not acceleration, through seeing how someone handles frustration, difference, disappointment, and time. Through consistency rather than declarations, through behaviour repeating itself calmly over weeks and months. Someone can feel very close very quickly without actually knowing you. Real knowing requires space. It requires moments where nothing much happens and the connection still holds. This doesn't mean distrusting strong feelings, it means letting them breathe. There's also value in noticing how disagreement is handled early on. Not big conflict, just small differences, preferences, opinions, mild friction. Does difference feel welcome, or does it need to be resolved quickly? Is curiosity present, or is alignment subtly enforced? Can two realities exist at once, or must they merge immediately? Certainty that can't tolerate difference isn't certainty, it's fragility trying to stabilize itself. And perhaps most importantly, listen to how you feel in your body. Do you feel grounded or slightly rushed, expanded or subtly contracted, free to be variable or responsible for keeping things smooth? The body often registers relational safety before the mind has a language for it. Proceeding wisely doesn't require cynicism, it requires patience with your own responses. It means allowing attraction to exist without letting it dictate speed. It means trusting that something real won't be lost by moving at human pace. Healthy connection doesn't fear time, it uses it. And finally, it's worth remembering this. Not every fast-moving connection is unhealthy, and not every slow one is safe. There are no absolute rules, only patterns, probabilities, and your lived experience. The goal isn't to avoid intensity. It is to ensure that intensity is contained by steadiness rather than driven by urgency. When you allow relationships to unfold rather than rush to define them, something quietly empowering happens. You stop auditioning for security and start observing your safety. You remain open without being absorbable, interested without being recruited. And in that warm space, human, unforced, the difference between performance and presence tends to reveal itself on its own. There are no forensics required. And I hope that is helpful to some of you who, as you get older and you meet men in particular, and you feel rushed and you think, oh, I'm not getting any older, and they're saying, oh, you're not getting any younger, you need to make a decision, you should know what you want and all that kind of stuff, and you feel subtly pressured. It's time to say, look, hang on a minute, just let's take it easy, not take it slow, but take it easy and see how that is received. Now remember, I'm Lady Loy. I'm on Lovers Rock Radio every Friday 7 till 9. And if you miss me, you can catch me on Mixcloud. And I'm also on Gold Standard Radio, which is my radio station. And that is on Saturdays 7 till 9 and on the Roller Coaster Show. So you can feel free to join me any of those times if you want to hear music, or you can listen to me on this platform if you want some advice. Well, not advice, but some information. Okay, and that's all for now.